How culture shapes our identities, the influence of tradition, belief, and society are why our sense of who we are feels deeply tied to where we come from. Culture plays an enormous role in shaping our identities, influencing not only our traditions and language, but even our thoughts, behaviors, and values. In today's video, we are exploring how culture shapes people's identities, looking at some historical examples to understand this fascinating relationship. What is culture and how does it influence us? First, let's define culture. Culture is more than just food, clothing, and customs. It encompasses a society's beliefs, arts, laws, knowledge, language, and habits. It's the lens through which we view the world and understand our place in it. From birth, we are surrounded by cultural norms and traditions, and they begin to shape who we are and how we think almost immediately. Think of culture as an invisible force, one that influences in ways we often don't even notice. For example, in Japan, the concept of wa or harmony affects how people interact, placing a high value on social balance and respect. Compare this with the United States, where individualism is celebrated and people are encouraged to express their unique perspectives openly. These cultural values can shape people's personalities and how they perceive themselves and others. The role of language in shaping identity. Language is one of the most significant aspects of culture that shapes our identities. The language we speak influences how we think and perceive the world. Linguistic relativity, also known as the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, suggests that the structure of a language affects its speaker's cognition and worldviews. Consider this. In the Hopi language, spoken by the Hopi people in Arizona, there is no word for time as we understand it in English. Instead, they describe events based on cycles or natural occurrences, which impacts how they perceive the concept of time itself. This shapes their cultural identity, emphasizing a more cyclical, rather than linear, understanding of life. On the other hand, in English-speaking cultures, time is often described in precise terms, and punctuality is seen as a virtue, reflecting a culture that values efficiency. Similarly, in cultures with multiple languages, the language someone chooses to speak can reflect a sense of belonging to a particular group. In India, for example, people's linguistic identity is deeply tied to their regional culture. Speaking Hindi in Uttar Pradesh or Tamil in Tamil Nadu is more than just about communication. It's about cultural pride and heritage. These languages shape how people see themselves and how they fit into the broader tapestry of Indian society. Historical examples of culture shaping identity. Now let's look at some historical examples to see how culture shapes identity on a large scale. Ancient Greece versus ancient Sparta. In ancient Greece, Athens and Sparta were two powerful city-states with distinct cultures, and these cultural differences profoundly shaped the identities of their people. Athenians valued philosophy, arts, and democracy, which made them see themselves as thinkers and participants in civic life. This culture fostered great minds like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Meanwhile, Spartans were raised in a culture centered on discipline, strength, and military prowess. From a young age, Spartan boys were trained to become warriors, and their identity was tied to their role as defenders of their city-state. The cultural environment determined whether someone saw themselves as a philosopher or a warrior. The influence of Confucianism in East Asia. In China, Confucianism has played a pivotal role in shaping people's identities for over 2000 years. This philosophy emphasizes respect for elders, the importance of education, and social harmony. Even today, Chinese culture places a significant emphasis on filial piety and communal values. These cultural teachings have been passed down through generations, affecting how people see their roles within their families and society. It's a stark contrast to more individualistic cultures in the West, where personal ambition often takes precedence over familial duty. Colonial influence on cultural identity in Africa. The colonial era brought a clash of cultures that significantly reshaped identities across Africa. European colonizers imposed their languages, religions, and governance systems on African societies, which had their own rich cultural traditions. This led to a cultural identity crisis in many parts of the continent. In Kenya, for instance, the influence of British colonization still lingers, with English being one of the official languages. Yet, many Kenyans continue to preserve their traditional languages and practices, resulting in a complex hybrid cultural identity. This blend of colonial and indigenous influences has shaped modern Africa societies in unique ways. Traditions and rituals as identity markers. Another way culture shapes identity is through traditions and rituals. Let's think about a few examples from different parts of the world. In Mexico, the Day of the Dead is a vibrant celebration of life and death. Families create altars and honor their deceased loved ones with offerings. This tradition helps shape their Mexican identity, emphasizing a close relationship with ancestors and a view of death that is more celebratory than somber. Contrast that with Western cultures, where death is often treated with solemnity. The way a culture deals with such fundamental aspects of life deeply influences how its people see themselves. In India, the festival of Diwali is a celebration of good triumphing over evil and light dispelling darkness. It's a time for families to come together, for homes to be decorated with lamps, and for prayers to be offered. These rituals reinforce a sense of community and belonging, tying people's identities to their cultural and spiritual heritage. When Indian families abroad celebrate Diwali, it's a way to keep that cultural identity alive even far from home. How culture influences values and beliefs. Values and beliefs are another critical way culture shapes identity. For example, collectivist cultures, like those in Japan and South Korea, emphasize group harmony, family ties, and loyalty. People from these cultures often see themselves as a part of a larger whole, which can influence decisions ranging from career paths to family responsibilities. On the flip side, individualistic cultures, like that of the United States, emphasize personal freedom and self-expression, shaping identities that prioritize personal goals and achievements. Religion is another powerful cultural force that shapes values. In the Middle East, Islamic culture influences not only religious practices but also social norms, dress codes, and laws. For many, being a devout Muslim is a core part of their identity, affecting how they interact with the world. Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, and other religions also shape identities in ways that go beyond the spiritual, influencing ethics, morals, and daily behavior. The impact of globalization on cultural identity. But what happens in a world that's increasingly interconnected? Globalization has created a fascinating dynamic where cultures blend and influence each other, but it has also raised concerns about losing traditional identities. People often adopt culture elements from other countries, whether it's through fashion, music, or even food. For instance, Bollywood films have a massive following not just in India but around the world, influencing how Indian culture is perceived globally. However, globalization can also lead to identity struggles. Immigrants often experience a cultural tug of war, feeling torn between preserving their cultural heritage and adapting to the new culture of the country they live in. This duality can create rich, layered identities, but also feelings of confusion and displacement. Take, for example, the experience of second generation immigrants in countries like the United States or the United Kingdom. They may celebrate traditionally cultural festivals at home while also fully participating in Western traditions like Halloween or Christmas. Conclusion. So, how does culture shape people's identities? It does so in countless ways, from the language we speak to the traditions we keep and the values we hold dear. Culture provides a sense of belonging, gives us a framework for understanding the world, and even shapes our expectations for the future. Yet, it's not static. As history has shown, cultures evolve and our identities evolve with them. As we move through our ever globalizing world, understanding the role culture plays in shaping who we are is more important than ever. It allows us to appreciate our own backgrounds while also respecting and understanding those of others. Our culture is our foundation, and our identity is a reflection of that foundation. If you found this video insightful, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more deep dives into fascinating subjects, and let us know in the comments. How has your culture shaped your identity? We'd love to hear your stories. Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious.